This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences, and the individual results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Hello, everybody. Let's go ahead and open up that Zoom room as you are connecting to Daily with Doc, and it is Pharmacist Fridays. So love Pharmacist Fridays as we are bringing to you even more empowering information coming from the pharmaceutical trained world as we are looking at things that are empowering and maybe some options to help you in figuring out what it is that you yourself as an individual can do to help yourself. So everybody, thank you so much for joining us here on Daily with Doc and Becca. My name is Becca Dukes, and as the hostess of this program, it is my honor and privilege to make sure that our amazing community has a resource that we can invite individuals to so that they can hear the information coming right from either the doc's mouth, as we have on Wednesdays and Thursdays with Dr. Joel Wallach, or even the pharmacist's mouth, which we have throughout the week, but mostly on Pharmacist Fridays. So if you were invited by somebody specific, please get back with the person that invited you to watch this program and tell them thank you. And as you're watching, send them little notes, things that you didn't know, or things that are your kind of your aha moments, as there are going to be lots of them in today's program. And for those of you who are watching us on a live stream or a replay and you would like to join us live or know more about when we do go live, make sure you go to DailywithDoc.com. This is the sponsor of this program. And on our website, you'll see an area where you can sign up for our email list. Sign up there, you'll get notification when we're going live. You will also get links to previous programming to help you find information to help you find a better health journey. So without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to bring to you the amazing Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. Pharmacist Ben has been in the pharmacy world for decades, although he doesn't look like he could be in it for as long as he has been, but hey, we'll just go with that. He has been in it for decades, and he has found the value and the power in what nutrition can actually do, even as a trained pharmacist. So Pharmacist Ben Fuchs, you are just absolutely incredible. And let me find you. Here we are.
Thank you.
Oh. Okay, so let me try this again. There. Wait. Stop. Now. No, we have too many chefs in the kitchen. So as I do something, it was somebody else was doing something at the same time, and then they were like canceling each other out. But we are here. So Pharmacist Ben, I know, like, well, we were talking about on the last Pharmacist Ben Bites, we were talking about oils and fats, and thought, well, maybe we should do a show on oils and fats. And that's exactly what we would like to do today, as we are calling this Fatty Friday. The Fatty Friday show, Lipid Literacy with Pharmacist Ben Fuchs. So you go deeper into just a fat is a fat. You actually look more into the scientific, as a scientist, as a researcher, as a pharmacist, going deeper into things that just most of us would look at the surface and it's like, oh, that's a fat, that's a fat, that's a fat. Well, they're good fats and bad fats, right?
Good fats, bad fats, that's a fat, this is a fat. What's a fat? I'm going to ask you, as a representative of all 30 or 40 or 50 people who are on this call, you tell me, what's a fat?
Well, for me, fats include vitamins that plants
not what they
don't
include. No, not what they include, not what they look like, not their characteristics. What is a fat?
It's a molecule.
I'm not picking on you, but I just want to highlight the fact that we use these terms without really knowing what we're talking about. And that creates a sense of disempowerment, because we don't really understand how to work with them. We don't understand what they are. We don't understand how to leverage them or take advantage of them or eliminate them if we need to. It's just a word. So what exactly is a fat from a biochemical standpoint, from a molecular standpoint? First of all, to understand a fat, you have to understand what it is distinguished from. In chemistry, there's two kinds of molecules. There's molecules that are said to dissolve in fat. We call it fat soluble, or technically lipophilic. Lipo means fat, philic means loving. Fat loving, fat soluble. These are substances that dissolve in oils and fats. I'll tell you what they are here in a second, what that is in a second. And there's a second class of molecules that are said to be hydrophilic, water soluble. And that is, they dissolve in water. This is the two major classes of biochemicals, of chemicals in general, in nature. Now, there are some chemicals that are sort of have a little fat solubility, a little water solubility, so it's kind of on a spectrum, right? So all the way to the left, we'd call them fat or fat soluble. All the way on the right, we call water soluble. And then there are things in the middle that have a little bit of water solubility, a little bit of fat solubility, depending on where in the spectrum they fall. Does that make sense? We have two extremes. So say olive oil would be on one extreme, water would be on another extreme. Water obviously dissolves in water, olive oil dissolves in oil, but within the middle, there's different things that have a little bit of water solubility, a little bit of fat solubility. So what exactly do we mean by fat soluble and water soluble? From a biochemical standpoint, a fat is like a chair with four legs on the ground. All four legs on a chair are evenly spaced, right? If you have a chair where the legs weren't evenly spaced, the chair wouldn't be solid, right? It would lean. A fat molecule has four symmetrical legs, metaphorically speaking, stuck on the ground. It's solid. It stays. A water-soluble ingredient leans. Water-soluble ingredients, by virtue of their leaning, dissolve in water and are very easy for the body or for anything to manipulate, because they lean. They're ready to move. They're heading in a direction. Is this making sense? If something is a chair and it's solid on the ground, it doesn't move. It's solid. But if it has three legs on one side and one leg on the other side, it's going to lean and it's going to be easier to pull. It's going to be easier to tumble over, to fall over. A chair with four legs on the ground doesn't fall over, but if it has three legs on one side and one leg on the other, it's going to fall over. Make sense so far? This accounts for the differences functionally in the body between fats and water, lipophilic and hydrophilic. Lipophilic is solid. It's much more difficult for the body to process. Water soluble leans. So it's much easier for the body to process because it's already moving in a certain direction. All I gotta do is flick it and it'll fall over. I need you to say yes or no if that makes sense. I'm using you as my barometer for the audience.
I didn't realize I had gotten muted. So yes,
Okay.
it's making sense.
Making sense? Okay, good. So water-soluble leans, fat-soluble is solid. It's a very important point. In biochemistry, we don't talk about chairs and leaning and solid. We have a different way of saying things. Things that lean have a pull. They're pulling this way. Things that are solid don't have a pull. In biochemistry, pull is, the word pull is polar. You may have heard the term polar. Something that's polar pulls. So when something leans, it's polar. It's easy for the body to work with something that leans. It's something that's polar. Things that are polar go into water, they dissolve, they get rinsed out, they don't get stored. They're much easier for the body to process and deal with and eliminate. Something that's non-polar, has no pull, solid, does not move. Making sense so far? Non-polar solid doesn't move. Polar leans, it moves. Water-soluble hydrophilic materials are said to be polar. Lipophilic, fat-soluble ingredients are non-polar, and that's a very important point. That non-polarity makes fats much more important and problematic than water-soluble ingredients or hydrophilic ingredients. The most important hydrophilic nutrients are going to be vitamins B and C, the B complex and vitamin C. Electrolytes, which by definition are minerals that dissolve in water, electrolytes. And then certain amino acids are also water soluble. The fat soluble nutrients are much more important in the sense that they're trickier for the body to work with, and they include, number one, fatty vitamins, and that's vitamins D, E, A, and K. DEEK, we remember those as DEEK. What are called sterols. These are molecules that act like steroids, and you'll sometimes see them at the end of the word, like cholesterol, or sometimes you hear phytosterol. And these sterols have a particular chemical structure that gives them certain properties. We'll talk about that here in a second. You also have phytonutrients like carotene and flavonoids. These are also things like resveratrol. These tend to be very fat. These tend to be in foods in very small amounts, and they're also very fatty. And then you have what everybody thinks of when they think of fat, which is oils and fats. These are technically triglycerides. And this is why you've heard the term triglycerides in the blood. Triglycerides are used by the body for energy. They're also used by the body to create certain structures. Triglycerides are made up of fatty acids. The word triglyceride comes from the fact that there's a glyceride, which is like a glycerin molecule. Think of an E. In the letter E, you have a line that goes like this, and then you have three lines that go like this. That's the letter E. That's what a triglyceride looks like. It has a line that goes like this. That's the glyceride, and then it has three fatty acids. This is what most of us think of when we think of fats. When you eat a triglyceride, or when the body processes a triglyceride, it breaks up the fatty acids and it uses the fatty acids. Fatty acids come in all kinds of lengths and all kinds of have all kinds of various properties and different kinds of solidity or liquefied degrees of liquefaction or degrees of solidity. But the most important fatty acids and triglycerides are two of them. These are so important that without them, you will get very sick. And if you don't have them long enough, you probably die. These two fatty acids are called essential fatty acids. And there's only two of them. One of them is called LA, and the other is called ALA. LA is also what we generically refer to as omega-6. ALA is what we generically refer to as omega-3. It's not exactly accurate because there's a lot of different omega-6s, there's a lot of omega-3s, but the two essential fatty acids, omega-6 and omega-3, are technically LA and ALA, and most people are very deficient in these. And the proof of that deficiency in ALA and LA is in the incidence of dry skin. If I were to ask you guys, I can't see the people, but if I was talking to you in person, I said, how many people have dry skin? How many people would raise their hands? Almost everybody, if not everybody. People who didn't raise their hands doesn't mean they don't have dry skin. They just didn't hear me or they don't want to raise their hands because everybody has dry skin. We sell billions of dollars in moisturizing creams in this country, and everybody has dry skin. How can this possibly be? You got Rebecca or Ruth Ellen or Phyllis, probably not Albert. Guys aren't as affected by this as women, but you three ladies, I bet you got a moisturizer in your purse and in your bathroom and in your kitchen and your 2 in your office and 1 in your desk and 1 in your car, and you got them all over the damn place. Most people have 5, 6, 7 moisturizers, and everybody has dry skin. How can this be? With all the moisturizer we have, nobody should ever have dry skin ever again. But the fact is, number one, dry skin is not a moisturizer deficiency. It's an essential fatty acid deficiency. Essential fatty acids being turned into moisture factors in your skin. So our Ultimate EFAs and Ultimate EFA Plus are the best moisturizer you could ever use internally, taking them internally. And if your skin is dry, the chances are you're not getting enough of these Ultimate EFAs or EFAs. Now, there's other things that can be involved in deficiencies in fats. I'll talk about that in a second. But right now, you can use your dry skin as a barometer of how much essential fatty acids your body is getting or your body is processing or absorbing. Dry skin is a metric for EFA deficiencies. Menstrual problems are also a marker for EFA deficiencies. And that is more menstrual problems you have, cramping, dysmenorrhea, problems with your periods, missing periods, etc. More than likely, you're going to have a problem with these 2 essential fatty acids. And it's no accident that women, when they're having their menstrual cycle or when they're having their periods, crave fatty foods. That's one of the most common things that women crave when they're having their periods is fatty foods. This represents the deficiencies. This represents EFA deficiencies. They're quite common, not only because of intake, but also because of absorption. Why absorption? Because fats are the trickiest of all of the 2 classes of nutrients to absorb. I know we said this before, but real quickly, you eat a food, it goes into your stomach, it goes down your esophagus, goes into your stomach, it's broken up in the stomach, then it goes from the stomach into the intestine. Once it hits the intestine, bile and pancreatic juices hit that food and liberate the fats. That means in order for fats to be absorbed at the level into the blood from the intestine, you've got to have an effective bile, you have to have effective bile secretion, you have to have a gallbladder, or you have to have a gallbladder, first of all, and then you have to have a healthy gallbladder. You also have to be secreting pancreatic juices. And you also have to be making bile at the level of the liver. So if you have a liver issue, if you have a pancreatic issue, if you have a gallbladder issue, bile issue, all of these are going to compromise your ability to absorb fats. Fats are also absorbed, like all nutrients, through the intestinal lining, through the intestinal wall, in a slightly different fashion than other nutrients, which I'll talk about here in a second. And if you have intestinal problem, if you have SIBO, if you have Crohn's disease, if you have ulcerative colitis, if you have any kind of intestinal inflammation, again, you're not going to be absorbing your fats. So between pancreatic issues, gallbladder issues, liver issues, intestinal issues, including dysbiosis, disturbances in gut bacteria, all of these can compromise the absorption of fats. And I'm focusing on triglycerides and essential fatty acids, but remember, vitamins D, E, A, and K are also fats. So if you have an intestinal issue, a bile issue, a liver issue, a gallbladder issue, or even a stomach issue, or a pancreatic issue, you're not going to be absorbing your fatty vitamins. Likewise with your sterols and your phytonutrients, the things like resveratrol that are in vegetables. So for all of these reasons, many people have issues with essential fatty acids, fatty vitamins, and fatty nutrients. How is this going to show up? Well, you can't make your fatty hormones, your steroid hormones, without fats. You can't grow tissue and repair without fats. Your brain is largely composed of fat, so cognitive issues are likely to happen when you have issues with fats, and that includes intake as well as absorption. And then most importantly, and most fascinatingly, fats are the key players in inflammation. The molecules of inflammation as well as anti-inflammation are fatty, and they're derived from fatty acids. Specifically, a type of molecule that has a real fancy name, you may not have heard of it, called an eicosanoid. Eicosanoids are broken down to form all the major players in the inflammatory system. And without essential fatty acids, you're not going to have the eicosanoids, and your inflammation, anti-inflammation system is going to be disturbed. And this accounts for a large amounts of inflammatory health challenges. To compound this problem, over the last 100 years or so, we figured out how to produce distorted fats. We figured out how to produce fats that look like fat, that taste like fat, that have all of the outside accoutrements of a fat, all the outside characteristics of a fat, but do not perform like a fat inside the body. Say, what the heck? Why would manufacturers want to create fats that look like fat and that taste like fat and that fool our biochemistry into thinking it's fat, but can't be used? Because they're cheap and they're stable and have long shelf life and can be reused. And as we talked about a couple days ago on our video, it's no coincidence that as soon as we figured out how to process and distort and stabilize fats, our health went on collectively as a country, went on a steep decline in terms of chronic degenerative diseases. Because remember, fats are key players in the inflammatory system, and once you ingest distorted fats, you're off to the inflammatory races. These distorted fats are sometimes called hydrogenated fats, or sometimes you hear the term partially hydrogenated fats, or sometimes you hear the term trans fats. And between trans fats and hydrogenated fats and partially hydrogenated fats, now they have a new kind called transesterified fats. All of these fats, which manufacturers absolutely love because they have all the characteristics of fat in terms of when we eat them, they taste like fat and they satisfy our fat cravings, and they look like fat, and they have one of the most important qualities of fat, which I'll tell you about here in a second. The body cannot use them. One of the most important reasons why we all love fat is because when we were evolving on the African savanna, it was very difficult to get fat. And fat is a rich source of energy. It's the richest source of energy of all the micronutrients. So like as with sugar, we developed into one-pointed hunting agents for fat. Wherever there's fat, we cannot resist it, especially if the fat is combined with sugar or with salt. The combination of fat and sugar and salt is absolutely irresistible to human beings. And if you want to make a lot of money, try and figure out a combination of food, a food that has a combination of sugar and salt and fat, and start selling it on the street. And you'll have people line up around the block to buy that combination of sugar and salt and fat, whether it's pizza or tacos or deep fried Snickers bars or fried chicken, or all the foods that we all love are combinations of sugar and salt and fat. And why is that? What is it about that combination that makes it so appealing? Well, aside from the fact that we're all seeking out sugar and fat from an evolutionary and salt from an evolutionary standpoint, because these three food groups are very important, but they weren't really around from an evolutionary standpoint. So we developed to be one-pointed seeking machines for sugar and salt and fat. Aside from that, fat has a very interesting quality. It helps flavor spread on your tongue. So fat makes sugar more sugary, salt more salty, and flavors more flavorful. This is why we always cook with fat. When you eat fat and sugar and salt, it's like having a flavor and flavorings. It's like having a flavor explosion in your mouth. And the fats just coat your taste buds. By the way, you can hack into this by adding butter to things like protein containing foods or starchy foods or starchy vegetables, and you'll enhance the taste. That's why we love butter on our potatoes or sour cream on our potatoes. The butter and the sour cream help the sugar from the potatoes, the carbohydrates from the potatoes, spread along your tongue, and it increases the flavoring. And if you add salt, it makes it even that much more flavorful, which is why you always want to add butter and salt to your veggies. If you add butter and salt to your veggies, not only will you make the vegetables more flavorful, but the fatty nutrients in the broccoli and Brussels sprouts and carrots and other veggies that you're using will dissolve into the butter. And your body will, in essence, it'll be pre-digested, and your body will have more access to those nutrients from the veggies, which is why you always want to add butter to your veggies and a little bit of steam and a little bit of salt. You get more nutritional value from that. And speaking of butter, it's the best fat to cook with. Because remember, distorted fats are very problematic. Butter is a stable fat, and so you can cook with it, which leads us to the point that I wanted to make here and that Dr. Wallach's been talking about for decades now, really, but at an accelerated pace over the last 5 or 10 years. And that is the problem with distorted fats. Fats are very unstable, especially to heat and to oxygen and to light. Heat and oxygen and light are the mortal enemies of fat. In order to create a stable fat for food processing, you have to heat it. And this distorts the fat. And so many of the fats that we ingest are distorted. The body cannot use them, but they taste like fat. They're tricky because we will eat them, but we won't get the benefit of the fat. We'll get the flavor, the taste of it, but we won't get the biochemical value of that fat. And these are the kinds of fats that most of us are eating. You can assume a fat is distorted and processed, dietary fat, if it comes in a clear bottle. Fats are very unstable to light, so they should never be in a clear bottle. But if you walk down the supermarket aisle, at the in the oil section, the salad oil section, all the oil is in clear bottles. They might as well have a sign on it that says distorted, cancer-causing, age-inducing fat on the bottle. If it's in a clear bottle, that's a fat that you do not want to ingest. And that's even before you eat it. In order to get fats, by the way, from things like safflower or sunflower or corn or soy or wheat, which is where most of us get our fats. Fats usually are derived from seeds, by the way, or nuts. In order to get the fats from seeds or nuts, high pressure has to be used. Think about it. A seed is like this big. It doesn't have a lot of fat in it. So what they got to do is they got to take a lot of seeds and they got to squeeze those seeds with a lot of pressure. That pressure generates heat, and that heat distorts the fat. The alternative to this high pressure that generates heat is a kind of fat called cold pressed. Sometimes you'll see the term cold pressed oils. Cold pressed oils don't generate heat, and they're generally a safer form of fat. Another way fats are extracted from seeds is by using chemicals called solvents. And these chemical solvents that remove the fat from the seeds are very similar to dry cleaning fluid. In fact, dry cleaning uses the same kind of chemistry that food processors will use to get oil out of seeds. What is it? You ever think about dry cleaning? What exactly is dry cleaning? How does that even work, dry cleaning? Dry cleaning is specific for oils. If you get an oil stain on your shirt or on your tie, they'll use dry cleaning solvents to get rid of the oil. Dry cleaning is specifically designed to get rid of oil. And it's not really dry in the sense that there's no moisture. It's dry in the sense that there's no water. To get dry clean, to dry clean fluids, you have to, or to dry clean clothes, to remove oils, you have to use solvents like benzene or hexane or acetone. These are highly, highly, highly carcinogenic. In fact, benzene is one of the most carcinogenic compounds known to man, and it's used in dry cleaning fluid. When I worked for Blistex, one of my jobs, as I've said before, one of my jobs was to wash the dishes. I was like low man on the totem pole, so I was the guy washing the Blistex off the beakers. And let me tell you something, if you ever felt Blistex, it's sticky and nasty. You wouldn't believe what it's like when it's on a beaker, when you're making it, when you're working in the lab. And I used to hate to have to wash that stuff off, the lanolin and the grease and the Vaseline and all the stuff off the beakers. So I would go get the benzene from the lab, and I would just put the benzene in the glass, and oh my God, benzene will just make those glasses squeaky clean. I remember Dr. Jones, my boss, the guy who then Blistex came in, he saw me using the benzene, he almost had a heart attack. He said, "What are you doing? Washing the beakers with benzene?" Benzene is one of the most amazing ways to get fats out of things, including seeds. Now, while they don't exactly use benzene, they use molecules similar to benzene to get oils out of seeds. So many oils, in addition to being distorted because of heat, are also contaminated with these toxic solvents. And this is the stuff you're getting at the supermarket. Also, while I'm on the same subject, this problem with distorted fats is especially an issue in skincare products. And I don't want to offend anybody out there who's using skincare products or who's buying or selling skincare products. But if you see sunflower oil or safflower oil or corn oil or wheat germ oil or macadamia nut oil or grapeseed oil or any kind of oil in your skincare product, that's a skincare product you don't want to use. Because number one, it's already going to be distorted by being heated at the factory. But once you put it on your skin, it's going to be exposed to oxygen and light and heat from the environment. It's going to further break down. And broken down oils, as I said before, distorted oils are a major cause of inflammation and accelerated aging. So that wrinkle cream you're putting on with the corn oil and the safflower oil could be accelerating your skin aging, which is why when I'm formulating my true skin health products, I never use vegetable oils. And you should never, ever put vegetable oils on your skin. If you're using a moisturizer or a skincare product, turn the ingredient deck around and turn the bottle around and look at the ingredient deck and see if there's a vegetable oil in it. Chances are there will be. Skincare manufacturers, who are among the most deceitful of all the consumer product manufacturers, love to put vegetable oils in their skincare products because people will rub their fingers along the vegetable oil lotion or cream and they'll go, "Oh, I'm moisturized." No, you're not moisturized. You're slickerized. And all you've done is put a slick coating on your skin. In addition to not being moisturized, you're also now going to run the risk of accelerated aging and inflammation. So once you process fat, if you're not processing fats correctly, if you have a problem with your intestine, gallbladder, liver, pancreas, stomach, not only are you going to have issues in terms of deficiencies in fats, and not only are you going to have issues with the toxicity of fats, but even worse, because fats are so important in the inflammatory process, now you're going to be running higher risks of systemic inflammation. And because systemic inflammation is associated with all chronic degenerative diseases, the ingestion of these kinds of fats is one of the major reasons why we suffer from long-term chronic degenerative disease. On the other hand, some of these these very short fats that get broken down from dietary fats are actually very healthy and beneficial and have wonderful anti-inflammatory benefits. And that's why you'll find things like CMO cream. I don't know if you've ever used our CMO cream or CMO capsules. The CMO stands for cetyl myristoyl. Cetyl myristoyl is a classic example of one of these short fats that has wonderful anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving properties. There's another really cool short fat called palmitoyl ethanolamide, or PEA. And PEA, palmitoyl ethanolamide, has wonderful pain-relieving properties. Nothing more than a short fat. We have we don't talk about this as much as we should, in my opinion, but we have a whole class of products called the Hemp FX products. You may have heard of the Hemp FX products. The Hemp FX products feature cannabinoids or endocannabinoids as opposed to phytocannabinoids. Endocannabinoids are cannabinoids that are found inside the body. And cannabinoids are also wonderfully anti-inflammatory and pain relieving. So these short chain fats can be beneficial. They can also be very pro-inflammatory. By the way, aspirin works by leveraging the anti-inflammatory properties of these short chain fats. Same with so-called non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs, things like Motrin and Naprosyn and Indocin and Piroxicam. There's a whole bunch of these things. Most of them are prescription, but there's a couple that are over the counter. And these over the counter drugs also work by taking advantage of this fat processing system. And they work at the level of fat processing, which is why I always tell people the ultimate EFAs and ultimate EFA pluses are nature's aspirin. They're God's aspirin. They're non-toxic aspirin, and that's why the ultimate EFAs and ultimate EFA plus act like anti-inflammatories and act like pain relievers. By the way, inflammation and anti-inflammation are supposed to lead into each other. Sometimes you'll hear people say that LA, which stands for linoleic acid, or what we conventionally call omega-6 EFAs. Sometimes you'll hear nutritionists say things like, omega-6s are inflammatory. I don't know if you ever heard people say that. They're inflammatory fats and you shouldn't eat omega-6s. These are actually nutritionists who will say this. And this falls under the category of a little knowledge is a dangerous thing. Because it's true, while omega-6s are inflammatory, they lead to anti-inflammation. And this is the way the healing system works in the body. Inflammation leads to anti-inflammation. Inflammation is like a beaver's dam or like an airbag. And so when you break your arm or you get a black eye or have some kind of wounding, the body will inflame. This inflammation protects the area that has been damaged. And the way the system is supposed to work, once the inflammation reaches a critical mass, it kicks into anti-inflammation and you heal. So inflammation is important for the healing process. Without adequate inflammation, you can't get into anti-inflammation and you can't heal, which is why omega-6s are just as important as omega-3s when they're intact and not distorted. So anybody who tells you that you shouldn't use omega-3, and you may have heard people say this, you shouldn't use omega-6s and you shouldn't take supplements with omega-6s, you should stay away from omega-6s, we get too many omega-6s in our diet. And this is a common myth that even healthcare professionals and nutritionists will say. What they're not understanding is, number one, you can't have anti-inflammation without inflammation. So omega-6s are just as important as omega-3s, but even more importantly, you have way more omega-6 fats in your body than omega-3 fats. Omega-6s are orders of magnitude more important in terms of functionality, in terms of how much they're used in the body, than omega-3s. Omega-3s are like pixie dust. They're like condiment. It's condiment, salt and pepper that's spread on the body, while the structure of the body largely depends on omega-6s. Omega-6s are especially important for cell membranes. The most important part of a cell, arguably, is the membrane, the outside part of the cell. The outside part of the cell is the part of the cell that is interacting with the environment. The inside of the cell does not directly interact with the environment. It only interacts with the environment through the mediating force of the cell membrane. And when I say the environment, I mean the soup that the cells are sitting in. Real quickly, cells are all sitting in a liquid soup, a medium. And that liquid medium that the cell is sitting in, the fluid that the cell is bathing in, is the main determining factor of what's going to happen in the cell, including the genetics. So the cell itself, the cell behavior itself, is dependent on the environment that the cell is sitting in, the soupy fluid the cell is sitting in. And the communication between the soupy fluid and the inside of the cell occurs at the level of the membrane, which is largely composed of fat, especially omega-6 fat. Now, there's a couple other fats that are in the cell membrane that deserve a special mention. One of those fats is a special fat, and as everybody in this call probably knows, fats are, the word fat in science is lipid, and there's a special kind of lipid or fat in the cell membrane that is a little bit water soluble. This is an interesting kind of fat. It's water soluble and it's fatty. It's not 100% water soluble, but it has a certain degree of water solubility, and it's also fatty. This makes it really valuable because it has the characteristics of water, or a water-soluble ingredient, and it has the characteristics of a fat-soluble ingredient. And arguably, this is one of the most important fats in the body. I was going to say the most important type of fat in the body, arguably. Certainly one of the most important types of fat in the body. And this is a fat called a phospholipid. Lipid means fat. Phospho means phosphorus. When you stick a phosphorus molecule onto a lipid, you get a phospholipid. And these phospholipids are stupendously valuable, not only because they're important for the cell membrane, especially for nerve cell membranes, which makes them really important for brain health and nerve health, but because phospholipids are a little bit water soluble and a little bit fat soluble, they make wonderful emulsifying agents. What the heck's an emulsifying agent? An emulsifying agent, or sometimes you'll hear people say emulsifier. An emulsifying agent, is a molecule that has a water side and a fat side. Just think of an extension cord that has a female side and a male side, right? With an extension cord or an adapter that has a male side and a female side, you can pull one type of cord in with another type of cord, and you can pull them together. That process in biochemistry of pulling one thing and another thing together is called emulsification, when one molecule is fat and one molecule is water. Remember, oil and water don't mix. Fat and water don't mix. But if you put an emulsifying agent in the middle, the water will get pulled with the fat and the whole thing will go together. This is how they make creams and lotions. Creams and lotions are made with oil and water, and because oil and water don't mix, they put an emulsifying agent in. The oil gets pulled into one side of the emulsifying agent. The water gets pulled into the other side. You get a nice creamy lotion or cream by mixing the oil and water. Another example of an emulsified product is mayonnaise. Mayonnaise, if you ever make, you can actually make homemade mayonnaise. You know it's made with oil and with water. Oil and water don't mix, so how do they pull together? They put something in the middle. What do they put in the middle to make mayonnaise? Rebecca, do you ever make mayonnaise? What's the third ingredient that pulls the oil and water together? Egg. Eggs, exactly. So what's in an egg that pulls the oil and water together? Phospholipid. Eggs contain a very special kind of phospholipid, and this is the main phospholipid, or the main way phospholipids show up in the body. Before I tell you what that special type of phospholipid is, which is, by the way, one of the best health supplements you could ever take, these phospholipids, let me also tell you that in the body, emulsification is also important. Why is emulsification, pulling oil and water together, in the body important? Well, this is how the digestive system works. When you eat a fat, say you eat you have a teaspoon of oil, or you have some tuna fish or some salmon, some fatty fish, or you have an egg or dairy or some kind of fatty food, or maybe some fatty meat. Your body has to emulsify that fat to mix it with water. So your body has an emulsifying agent to mix in the digestive system to mix the fat with the water. It's almost like a soap. And by the way, soap is also an emulsifying agent. When you have dirt on your hand and you put the dirt on your hand underneath a stream of water in your tap, that dirt isn't going anywhere because dirt is oily. That's why it sticks to your hand. Remember, oils stick. If dirt were watery, it wouldn't stick to your hand or to your body or to your hair or wherever, your clothes. If you put that oily dirt under a spout and the water goes on the dirt, nothing's going to happen. It's going to beat off the dirt and the dirt's going to stay in your hand. What do you have to use to get rid of that dirt? You have to use soap. What does soap do? Soap is an emulsifying agent. And soap will pull the oil or the dirt off the oil part of your hand and combine it with the water from the tap and rinse it off. Soap and cleansing are emulsifying processes and emulsifying agents. Well, the body has its own soap. It's called bile. And bile, just like soap gets the water out of your hand and gets the oil out of your hand, the dirt out of the oil part of your hand and washes it off with the water, that's how bile emulsifies the food you eat and releases the fat and combines it with the watery digestive juices so you can absorb it. Bile is biological soap. And the active component, the active molecular component that does the emulsifying work in bile is phospholipid. So phospholipids are important for the cell membrane. Phospholipids are important for emulsification. And the main source, the main form that phospholipids take in the body and the main form that phospholipids take in foods is called lecithin. Lecithin is a phospholipid. It's a complex of phospholipids of different sizes and different shapes. And bile is largely composed of lecithin. And the reason why eggs act like an emulsifier to make your mayonnaise, to mix the oil and water in your mayonnaise, is because eggs are largely composed of lecithin. In fact, wherever you have oil in nature, fat in nature, and foods, like, for example, seeds and grains and dairy and eggs and organ meats and fish, fatty fish, guess what you'll find with those fats? Lecithin. Lecithin in nature is always found with fats. Phospholipids are always found with fats. And this is one of the reasons why eating these kinds of foods is so beneficial, even though those are the foods we hear we're not supposed to eat. Dairy and eggs and organ meats. Not only are these wonderful sources of fats and fatty nutrients, but they're also sources of phospholipids, which help the body utilize those fats. Now, real quickly, to break down the triglycerides, and then we'll talk a little bit about the fatty vitamins, and also the most misunderstood of all the fats, which is cholesterol. Real quick, fats are described by how liquidy, or how dietary fats, I should say. Dietary fats are described by how liquidy or how solid they are. Liquidy fats are said to be unsaturated. Solid fats are said to be saturated. Back in the 60s and 70s and 80s, and even sometimes, even today, you'll hear people who really don't understand nutrition saying something simplistic like, saturated fats are really bad for you, and unsaturated fats are really good for you. Now, in fairness, people have gotten hip to the fallacy of this statement, but there's still nutritionists saying this and healthcare professionals saying this. And in the 60s and 70s and 80s, not so much the 60s, but the 70s and 80s and 90s, they were saying it a lot, and there's still some people who believe this. Unsaturated fats, being liquid, are much more unstable than saturated fats, which are solid. The classic example of saturated fat is lard. Butter is also a saturated fat. The classic example of unsaturated fats are corn oil and safflower oil and sunflower oil. And while these fats, these liquid fats, contain the essential fatty acids that we talked about earlier, they're also very, very unstable, and you have to be using them extremely carefully. As Doc has said for years, you don't want to cook unsaturated fats. You don't want to put heat unsaturated fats, and of course you don't want to expose them to light or oxygen. Saturated fats, you don't have that problem. saturated fats are really stable. They don't distort like unsaturated fats. They don't have the essential fatty acids in them, and they're not as important for the outside, the cell membrane, as the saturated fat, and your body can make saturated fats. So there's no real dietary need for saturated fats, but the stability of saturated fats versus unsaturated fats makes them much easier for the body for us to work with from a cooking perspective. And they're the only kinds of fats you should ever cook with, particularly butter. Two major kinds of saturated fats are the most important kind are lard and butter, and also coconut oil. These are saturated fats, solid fats, but butter by far is the best fat to cook with because butter is highly nutritious. You still don't want to heat it too much because you can still burn it if you heat it too much. But with mild heat, butter is the ideal fat to cook with because not only is it stable, but it's also a source of fatty nutrients like vitamins, particularly vitamins A and D, and also to a certain extent E and K, which are also very important. Now, butter also contains a specific kind of fatty acid. Remember, fatty acids are the main way the fats show up in the body in terms of usage. Triglycerides and fatty acids, and triglycerides are made up of fatty acids. Fatty acids come in three main sizes, or lengths, more accurately. You got long fatty acids, and these long fatty acids are the ones that are found in most foods. You've got medium fatty acids, and these medium fatty acids, sometimes you hear the term medium chain fatty acids or medium chain triglycerides, MCTs. These medium fats, which are not found anywhere near as much in food as the long fats, are very, very valuable. And you can actually get MCTs as a nutritional supplement. MCTs can be used as energy very efficiently. And for people who do not have a gallbladder, or people who have liver problems, or for athletes and bodybuilders, MCTs can be incredibly important as a source of energy. When I used to work for at University Hospital as a pharmacist in PEDS ICU and neonatal ICU, University of Colorado was a regional center for babies who were born with defective digestive tracts, and also for crack babies who are, believe it or not, addicted to crack and addicted to heroin. We used to have to give the babies MCTs, medium chain triglycerides. It was one of the major, one of the most important drugs that, not really drugs, but substances that I would have to put in the medicine carts, because MCTs could be used by the babies even if they had liver problems or intestinal problems. And for folks who have these kinds of health issues where they're fat malabsorption issues, either because of liver problems or gallbladder problems or pancreatic problems or intestinal problems, MCTs can be incredibly important as a source of energy. As an aside, the brain is very dependent on fats and fatty nutrients, and MCTs are now known to be one of the ways you can treat or at least reduce the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease and Alzheimer's dementia. There's a lot of literature that supports MCTs for cognitive decline and for dementia issues. Probably it would work for MCTs would be helpful for Parkinson's disease and movement disorders that are secondary to brain problems. And then the third kind of fat, which I find to be the most fascinating, are short fats, or short chain fatty acids, SCFAs they call them. You got the long chain fatty acids, the medium chain fatty acids, and the short chain fatty acids. The short chain fatty acids are made by bacteria in the intestine. And one of the short chain fatty acids that are made by these bacteria is one of the most important and underappreciated molecules in the body. This is a fatty acid that's called butyric acid. B-U-T-Y-R-I-C. Butyric acid is a short chain fatty acid that has a tremendously valuable role to play for intestinal health. And in fact, butyric acid is protective against colon cancer. as well as other intestinal diseases. Butyric acid is also a very important fat for the brain and the nervous system. Butyric acid helps you feel calm and satisfied and content. Butyric acid is a satiety-inducing agent. It makes you feel satisfied. When you eat butyric acid, you don't eat as many calories. Butyric acid is also converted into bodybuilding compounds and chemicals. When I was doing my bodybuilding days, my weightlifting days when I was a kid, we used to take a supplement called HMB, hydroxymethylbutyrate, which is a derivative of butyric acid. Butyric acid, short-chain fatty acid, is also converted into one of the brain's most important calming chemicals that has also anti-seizure effects. It's called gamma-aminobutyric acid. So we take this fatty acid and you put an amino group on it. GABA, also known as GABA. In fact, we use GABA in our Sleepy's product. Dr. Wallach, when he formulated Sleepy's, wisely put GABA because GABA relaxes you and helps you fall asleep. GABA is also anti-seizure. There's another derivative of butyric acid called gamma hydroxybutyrate, or GHB. GHB is one of the most amazing molecules known to man in terms of its pharmaceutical properties. GHB, check this out. GHB is the best sleep aid you'll ever take. If you took GHB, you'd fall asleep in 5 or 10 minutes, you'd sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and you wake up perfectly rested. How amazing is that? The same GHB molecule that helps you fall asleep fast and get a good, wonderful rest in 3 or 4 hours also builds muscle. And bodybuilders will use GHB for anabolism. And bonus, GHB is one of the most powerful aphrodisiacs and libido enhancers you'll ever use. Check that out. Helps you fall asleep. It helps you build muscle. And it's a great aphrodisiac. I mean, really great aphrodisiac. And it comes right from butyric acid, GHB. Now, if you're thinking you're going to go out and get some GHB because you want to spike your libido and fall asleep and build muscle, all non-toxic, I'm sorry to say it's illegal. You can't get it because it's too perfect. In fact,
I was just build your libido and then fall asleep. That's just like,
it could be more perfect, right? And I'm talking it became, and I have a lot of experience with GHB because I used to make it in my lab till it became illegal. It became illegal in the 90s. And the reason it became illegal, they say anyway, is because people were putting it in you can't taste it. It has tasteless. So they were putting it in people's drinks. So, you know, the whole date rape thing. So they made it illegal. But the fact is, it's one of the best bodybuilders used to use it all the time. It's one of the best anabolic aids, sleep aids, and libido enhancing aids you'll ever use. And it's just a derivative of butyric acid, a short chain fatty acid. You can see why I started off by saying this is such a fascinating molecule, butyric acid. It's one of the short chain fatty acids. Butyric acid is what gives butter the name butter. Butter is one of nature's richest sources of butyric acid. So to the selenium and the iodine and the vitamin A and D and K and the saturated fat for cooking and the delicious taste, you can now add the benefits for your intestine as well as your brain as well as satisfaction to butyric acid, or to butter, I should say. By the way, the ketogenic diet supports the production of butyric acid. And this is one of the reasons why the ketogenic diet is so satisfying and why fats are so satisfying in general. There are 2 other short-chain fatty acids, one of which is called propionic acid, which is not as interesting to me as the third one, which is acetic acid. And acetic acid, by virtue of its ability to dissolve fat and water, the short-chain fatty acids, butyric acid and propionic acid and acetic acid, which are made by bacteria in the intestine, have a certain ability to dissolve oil and water. And this makes the short-chain fatty acids like acetic acid incredible cleaning agents. And in fact, people who clean houses, when they want to use a non-toxic cleanser, will use vinegar, which is 5% acetic acid. And you can use that yourself if you want to clean things. Acetic acid or vinegar makes a great cleanser. It has emulsification properties. Acetic acid also is great for your skin because it will dissolve skin oils and also has a little bit of an exfoliating property. You don't want to overuse it because you don't want to remove too many skin oils, but it can be great for people who have hypersebaceous secretions like acne patients or people who just have oily skin. Using vinegar can be a great way because of the acetic acid to remove oil off the skin, and because it's water soluble, you can just rinse it right off. We're running out of time here, and I wanted to talk about two other kinds of fats, which are really important. One is the class of fatty vitamins, D, E, A, and K. And the other one is probably the most misunderstood fat in the entire spectrum of fatty molecules and fatty nutrients, which is cholesterol. But cholesterol deserves its own conversation, so I'm not going to rush cholesterol as well as the fatty vitamins.
I think both of those categories deserve their own presentation.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you.
I mean, even the butter and the butyric acid, is that what it was?
Butyric acid, B-U-T-Y-R-I-C, butyric acid. I mean, very important for the colon, for folks who are dealing with inflammatory colon disease or irritable bowel, or to prevent colon cancer, as well as for brain health and bodybuilding.
I mean, that
and satisfaction, satiety.
Yeah.
And remember, last thing, if you have a problem absorbing your fats, you're going to get none of those benefits. You're not going to get any of the benefits from the phospholipid, or, I don't know any, but you'll get reduced benefits from phospholipids. You'll get reduced benefits from butyric acid and the short chain fatty acids. You'll get reduced benefits from MCTs. You get reduced benefit from all of the fats. And because the fats are so important for building and for genetics and for growth and repair, real quickly, fats, because they're stable and long-term, are more important for long-term kinds of chemistry. The water-soluble nutrients are important for short-term chemistry, bursts of chemical action. But for anti-aging and for growth and repair and for fighting diseases and for building tissue, the fatty molecules are so important, also as molecules of inflammation, anti-inflammation. So if you have any problems with fat malabsorption, which many, if not most people do, all of these bodily processes are going to be compromised to one degree or another.
Wow. Ben, we have lots of hands up, lots of questions. Do you have some time for
I have time, but I mean, I don't, it's already 2:03. So.
If you've got time, we're going to keep on going because,
okay. Yeah, I'll take a few questions, and then next week we can talk about the cholesterol and the fatty vitamins.
Perfect. Now, first question.
Yes.
So Uche, she's 53 years old. She has been having problems with low blood pressure.
Yes.
Like 86/55.
Okay.
Is a normal for her. But if she takes a teaspoon of Himalayan salt, then it will raise it up to like 116/80.
Okay. Well, what is that telling you? First of all, what does salt do? Salt absorbs water. One of the ways the blood pressure is maintained is by the water trapping properties of the blood. The water trapping properties of the blood's a fluid. And so the more watery this fluid is, the fluid blood is, the thicker the blood, not the thicker, but the more volume the blood's going to have, and the higher the pressure. When the blood is more watery, the pressure is going to drop, or when the blood is not as watery, you don't have as much fluid, your pressure is going to drop. So thickening the blood or fattening the blood or increasing the blood volume is actually a more accurate way of saying is going to increase the pressure, and salt can do that. And this is one of the reasons why they'll put you on a low salt diet when you have high blood pressure. The thinking is by avoiding the salt, your blood will not hold on as much water and the volume will shrink and the pressure will drop. Salt is increasing the pressure, but the more important point, does that make sense, by the way? Salt increases the volume, so it increases the pressure. But the more important point is, why is this person not having enough blood volume to have the pressure? And that usually implicates a deficiency in the major blood volumizers, which are blood proteins like albumin. And these are all made in the liver. So one of the causes of low blood pressure are deficiencies in albumin and blood proteins, which is secondary to liver disease or liver issues. And that's where I would be focusing on with this person. If there's fatty liver issues, metabolic syndrome issues, usually a liver concern. Now, if salt is helping, that's great. And Celtic sea salt or Himalayan salt is great salt. Also, more water will help as well. And this is one of the reasons why first thing in the morning, if you drink water, like a quart of water, first thing in the morning, just drink it down, your blood volume will increase. You get more blood to your brain. You get higher pressure, and you get better volumization. During the night, we've urinated a couple times, once or twice. We've sweat out. So we tend to be deficient in water, dehydrated first thing in the morning. So first thing in the morning, drinking water will volumize your blood. You get better circulation to your brain. You have more energy and more clarity of thought. Likewise with blood pressure. Although I would be more interested in knowing why the pressure is low. And that, to me, the first thing I would look at is the liver and blood proteins.
So she is pre-diabetic. She has an elevated creatinine. I think I said that.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Right.
So those are all
and
kidney issues. That's a
yeah.
kidney
So she
issue.
she drinks 7 bottles of 500 milliliters. So is that what, about 16 ounces? She drinks 7 of those
16
a day.
ounces is great. Yeah, 16 ounces is that would be half a quart. I usually 32 ounces is good first thing in the morning. You can guzzle down 32 ounces of good clean water, spring water or reverse osmosis water. That's great. Creatinine, if she has elevated creatinine, that's telling me there's also a kidney issue, which again, there's some metabolic syndrome implications, which can also involve the liver. If she does have poor kidney function, that can have an implication on blood pressure. But usually you'll have high blood pressure if you have poor kidney function. If she has low blood pressure, I would be looking at the liver, especially if she has pre-diabetic and she has kidney issues.
Which the pollen burst daily liver formula would be an option.
Yes, ma'am. And also Dr. Aria's liver cleanse. And I don't talk about that product anywhere near enough, but anybody who's dealing with a gallbladder problem, liver problem, any kind of digestive problem, Dr. Aria's liver cleanse. And Dr. Arias, I don't know how many of you guys know who he is. He is an amazing network marketer as well as a healthcare professional. And he has a whole line of products, the True to Life, I think they're called the True to Life products. And then one of them is the liver cleanse, which is great. I'm a big fan of the liver cleanse. And I'm a big fan of Dr. Arias. If you ever get a chance to listen to him on Facebook or on one of these talks, he's an amazing network marketer.
Absolutely. And I'm working on getting him to come on and share with us about his liver cleanse.
Should have him on. Yeah. And he's like I say, he knows how to do network marketing.
Okay, so kidney issues, Dr. Wallach always, and she is on the 90 essential nutrients. Dr. Wallach always mentions the Ultimate Daily Classic to help clean the kidneys out and create
Sweeties
that circulation.
too.
Sweeties to help control blood sugar, absolutely. And then the products that we just mentioned for liver and supporting the liver so that it can detoxify and do what it's designed to do efficiently. So, and enzymes. Would enzymes be helpful?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. For all digestive issues and liver issues, absolutely the enzymes, digestive enzymes.
All right. Excellent. Thank you so much for that, as I know she is watching and listening. Let's go to a hand that is up. And Hattie, what questions do you have for Pharmacist Ben today?
Awesome. Dr. Ben, thank you so much.
Hattie, Pharmacist Ben.
Pharmacist Ben, I apologize.
Yes.
Ben, you spoke with a client of mine who was having fluid on the lungs. In any event, she called me. Now, so she was going to be on the call, but I'm not too sure if she is. But in any event, she just called me and told me that she had a biopsy done. They took away 1.6 fluid ounces of fluid from her lungs, and they found some malignancy
in the lungs.
Yeah, yeah. so she's going in for CAT scan and all that kind of stuff. But the question is, what should we really
Well,
do
you
now?
can do. First of all, fluid in the lungs, or technically pulmonary edema, is usually related to cardiovascular issues, heart issues. The blood is not moving effectively. So I'd be looking at heart disease, healthy brain and heart pack if you want to do supplements. As far as dealing with the cancer, you know, I've said this before, we talked about this a couple of days ago, cancer only occurs after the body's been in duress for a long time. Right? So it's not like you just take this supplement or that supplement to get rid of cancer. The way you want to look at this is you want to make the body strong and healthy. And the Mighty 90 essential nutrients are key to that. Staying away from problematic foods and eating less food is also important. Slow, deep rhythmic breathing, as we've talked about, is important. Exercise and movement are important. There's a whole bunch of other things. But I would be focusing largely on cardiovascular issues for this woman. Is she older?
She's 73.
Okay, so chances are there's some heart issues. Did she tell you there's any heart issues? Blood pressure
Yes,
issues?
yes.
That's usually the cause of so-called fluid in the lungs or pulmonary edema, which is an accumulation of excess fluid in the lung tissue. But you want to treat it as a cardiovascular health issue. You can use the healthy brain and heart pack, but one of the major reasons why people have heart problems is because of blood sugar. So that's always involved. That's usually involved too. So you're going to want to you're going to also want to use the healthy, you know, the sweeties and the ultimate niacin, ultimate selenium, all the nutrients that are in the healthy blood sugar pack. I would focus on the healthy brain and heart pack, and then throw in nutrients for blood sugar as well, and then use the diabetic eating strategies.
Sure.
Stay away from sugary foods, that kind of thing.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Hattie. Great question. Next, let's go over to AJ.
Hey, Pharmacist Ben.
Hello, AJ.
I'm going to try and be quick here. My first question is, can we consume essential fatty acids, the omega-3s that don't have ALA?
Omega-3s that do not have ALA are not essential fatty acids. ALA is the essential fatty acid. So if you don't have ALA, you're not having an essential fatty acid. There are different omega-3s, but for the most part, when we talk about omega-3s, we're talking about either ALA or DHA and EPA, which are found in fish oil.
Right. So there are some brands that don't have the ALA.
And then they would be DHA and EPA.
Correct.
Is that what yeah. So what are you asking? What's the question?
So I'm saying, are we getting what we need when we consume?
No, you're getting good stuff, but not what you need. Not everything you need. DHA and EPA, which are found in fish oil, are very important for the brain and the eyes and hand-eye coordination, for the nervous system. DHA and EPA. DHA is also, and EPA are also very important for the skin and actually have anti-sunburn properties, and also will protect the skin and the body from EMFs, electromagnetic frequencies. And you may know this whole scandal with EMFs in the last 120 years or so. Our environment has become saturated with EMFs where there were never EMFs before. It's only been the last 120 years since we had 150 years or so since electricity. So omega-3, DHA and EPA, which are omega-3s, can be protective against EMFs, protective against sunburn, important for hand-eye coordination in the brain and eyes. And this is why pregnant moms want to use DHA and EPA, but they're not EFAs. They're not essential in the sense your body can make DHA. Your body can make EPA. Doesn't make it tremendously efficiently, at least for some people, but your body can still make it, so they don't get the classification of essentiality. ALA is essential, and it gets converted into DHA and EPA. Without ALA, you can't make DHA and EPA. ALA is essential. It's critical for the inflammatory and anti-inflammatory system. Without it, you won't have the same degree of anti-inflammation as you would with it. DHA and EPA are not essential. They're good. They're really good. They have a lot of advantages, but they're not essential. So you still need to have a source of ALA, and that's where the Ultimate EFA and the Ultimate EFA Plus come in.
Okay, and then Jill's asking, what about for those that have the shellfish allergies? Can they use like the multi EFAs? Like I think that's Primrose.
I'm not sure why, because of the fish oil. Is that what you're saying?
I'm gathering.
No, first of all, many shellfish allergies are not due to or due to histamine, which is in shellfish or seafood, or can stimulate histamine from the body. So if you have a shellfish allergy, it may not be an allergy, a literal allergy. It may be that the histamine in the food is aggravating your own histamine production, or it's not aggravating, but it's adding to your histamine production. Histamine is like antihistamines. Histamines activate the immune system. So it may not be an allergic reaction. That's first of all. Second of all, the oils are different from the shellfish and the seafood. It's just the oils. There's nothing allergenic in the oil. Allergenic ingredients, and again, a lot of times it's not an allergenic ingredient, it's the histamine, but let's go with the allergenic ingredient. They're not going to be found in the oil. So you're fine taking the oil, even if you have a seafood or shellfish allergy.
Okay, she's saying that 2 of her customers itch from the EFA plus.
If you itch, that's a sign of poor processing at the level of the gallbladder or the liver. There's really nothing that you could be allergic to. Allergies require a type of protein. Nobody's allergic to fats. You're allergic to proteins. That being said, there are certain fatty molecules in the body that are produced in the intestine that can be very allergenic, but they don't come from foods. They come from bacteria in the intestine. And these are a whole class of LPSs, they call them, lipopolysaccharides, and they're very allergenic. And they're associated with almost all chronic degenerative diseases, but you don't eat them. They're made by bacteria. So itching in response to EFAs or ultimate EFAs would tell me that she's not processing them correctly. And remember, fatty molecules that aren't processed correctly, they will produce inflammatory compounds, which can cause itching. So if that's the case, and I want to ask a few more questions, but assuming that's the case, that would tell me there's a liver problem or a gallbladder problem, or maybe a pancreas or intestinal problem.
And okay, and then my question is, you talked about fats, but now when the average person thinks of that word, we're thinking about what's around my stomach.
That's a different kind of fat. That's not a dietary fat. We've been talking about dietary fats.
How does the stuff around my stomach get there?
How does it get there?
Is it not fat?
No, it's totally fat. It's just not dietary fat. It comes from sugar. Also, to a certain extent, fat that you eat, but mostly from sugar. Sugar gets stored as fat when it's not used. Fat is a storage form of sugar. And so when you eat a lot of you eat a lot of sugar, your body will store that sugar as fat. The sugar some sugar is used, but we eat so much extra sugar that the body can't use it, and it stores it as fat. The visceral fat, which is the fat around your organs and around your belly, which is so problematic, really, really associated with shortened lifespan as well as other diseases, including inflammatory diseases and heart disease. That's the end result of carbohydrate ingestion. Carbohydrates are turned into fat. Carbohydrates get turned into triglycerides very efficiently, and then into fat, and then it gets stored as fat. So visceral fat, which is a big problem, big health problem, is usually a sign of too much sugar and not processing that sugar, using not enough nutrients to process that sugar.
Okay, but is this the same thing that we're consuming from the fish?
No, not at all. The stuff you're consuming from the fish, some of it might get stored as fat. That's true. But for the most part, that's going to be, if you're healthy anyway, that can be used for energy. Eventually, too much fat will also get stored as fat, though. If you eat too much.
So we're going to have another show. Becca's going to do another show because we got tons and tons of questions, and I don't want to hog any more time.
Yeah, it's already late, but we should talk about visceral. That's called visceral fat, fat that's around your body. Mostly, that's the end result of too much sugar. Although, if you eat a lot of fat, that can happen. That can also get stored as fat.
You, man, thank you.
All right. How about Phyllis? Phyllis, what question do you have, Pharmacist Ben?
Yes, I have a couple of questions from YouTube. We definitely need another show on all of this. Okay, Joe on YouTube has a quote I'm going to read you. You were talking about the stability of saturated fats, that they're good for you. Here's the quote.
I
Fully
didn't say good for you. I never say good for you,
better.
but they're stable. Put it that way. Now,
Stable.
visceral saturated fats can be problematic also. You don't want to eat a bunch of donuts and potato chips, but they're stable, so they don't break down like unsaturated fats to produce these inflammatory compounds.
And this quote will relate to that. Fully hydrogenated oils are mostly saturated fat and don't pose the same health risks as trans fats. What do you think about
Say that one more time. Say this. Start again.
Fully hydrogenated oils.
Okay, so fully hydrogenated oils are trans fats.
Oh, because this is
So I don't
claiming
know-
they're mostly saturated.
Trans fats are saturated fats. Hydrogen makes things solid, makes fat oil solid. Real quickly, and we talked about this a couple of days ago on our whatever you call them, AJ. I don't know what you call those talks.
Bites.
The bites, yeah. Liquid fats, let me say this. Lard used to be the only saturated fat up until the late 1800s, the late 19th century. The only saturated fat, for the most part, was lard. Butter also probably. And other, eggs and such have saturated fats too. But most of the saturated fats that we used at that time, specifically for saturated fats, was lard. Lard's expensive. Pigs are expensive. You got to raise the pigs. You got to slaughter the pigs. You got to feed the pigs. So it was really expensive. So lard was great, but it was expensive. So food manufacturers started to experiment with fake lard. And they figured out if they took a liquid oil, an unsaturated fat that is, liquid fat, and they pumped it with hydrogen using fancy industrial techniques and catalysis and such, that liquid fat would solidify. That solidification created a fake lard. It created a synthetic lard. That fake lard or synthetic lard is said to be hydrogenated. Hydrogenation simply means there's hydrogen pumped into that liquid and it solidified it. So it's a hydrogenated fat. Sometimes you'll see partially hydrogenated fat. That has less hydrogenation. Either way, these are fake fats and they have the advantage of being cheap, but they're solid, so they have the qualities of lard. Lard's solidity makes it good for baking. And I'm not, like I was saying the other day, I'm not really much of a baker. I don't know much about baking, but I know that when people want to make a nice flaky pie crust, they use lard, or they did use lard. Then when they figured out how to make fake lard, all of a sudden they had a cheap form of lard. And they didn't have to raise pigs. They could just use oils, vegetable oils, which are abundant, especially cottonseed oil, which was the very first fake lard. And that's why we have crystallized cottonseed oil, i.e. Crisco. And Crisco was the first hydrogenated oil. It was the first vegetable oil, liquid oil that got pumped with hydrogen, and it revolutionized the food business. What you're asking about is a trans fat. Most fats, and I don't want to get into too much biochemistry, but trans refers to the shape of the fat. There's a shape of a fat that where one of the, and this is just very simplistic. If anyone's in biochemistry, don't hold my feet to the fire on this. If there's a molecule sticking up, they say it's trans. If the molecule is sticking down, they call it cis, C-I-S. Cis versus trans. The body loves cis fatty acids. It can't use trans fatty acids. When you hydrogenate a fat, you turn it into a trans fatty acid where the molecule's sticking up, where there's like an arm sticking up. The body cannot use those. It'll try to use them, and it'll make distorted cells. Remember, that cell membrane has these fats in it, so you'll end up with distorted cells. And everywhere where the body is trying to include a fat in a molecule, it'll be distorted because it has this arm sticking up out of it. And that's the problem with trans fats. They're produced by hydrogenation. So I'm not sure what this guy's talking about, where this quote is talking about, because hydrogenation is the way trans fats are produced. A hydrogenated fat is a trans fat. So I'm not exactly sure where that quote is coming from, but hydrogenation, trans, all these types of words that you're hearing are industrially processed fats. Never a good thing. And this is what Doc's been talking about for years.
hydrogenated equals trans fat,
Not
period.
necessarily equals. It's not like an equal thing, but when you hydrogenate, you create trans fats in the hydrogenation process.
Got it. And he had one more quick question. He asks if seeds are okay to eat, like sunflower seeds.
Yes, seeds are tricky. Nature does not want its seeds to be eaten because nature wants its seeds to grow. If you eat a seed, it's not going to grow. So nature's very protective of its seeds. And as a way of protecting its seeds, it has loaded seeds up with compounds that are not beneficial to biochemistry, things that are like enzyme inhibitors that suppress our biochemistry enzymes. Also lectins, these problematic molecules that can irritate, like gluten, that can irritate the intestine. So seeds can be problematic. And there are lots of poisons in seeds. We talked about this a couple of days ago. One of the most maybe the most powerful poison known to man is something called ricin, R-I-C-I-N, which is found in beans, which are seeds. So seeds are a problem. At the same time, they're wonderful sources of nutrition because think about it. What is a seed? A seed is a life. It has everything necessary to make a tree, everything necessary to make a plant. Everything necessary to make a living creature is in the seed. So the seed is condensed nutrition. It's powerful nutrition with anti-nutrients in there. By the way, phytic acid is one of those anti-nutrients. You may have heard of phytates and phytic acid. So nature has taken this seed, which is powerful medicine, super nutritional, and put poison in there. Not a lot of poison, but enough poison that will make it problematic for an animal to eat the seeds. Nature wants you saying, I'm not going to eat the seed, so the seed can grow. Also, seeds are nature's richest source of oil. What is oil at the end of the day? Oil is trapped sunlight. The reason oil is so important is because it's the sun in liquid form. It's concentrated sunlight. That's what oil is. It's concentrated sunlight, and a seed is loaded with this energy. So a seed is like a nuclear bomb. It's like all this energy condensed into a tiny, tiny space, which is why the best way to eat your seeds is by adding water to them. When you add water to a seed, all that condensed nutrition, that condensed energy is released, and it's called a sprout. And while seeds are very problematic because they got the poison, when you add water, you release all that wonderful energy, and now you have nature's most important, incredible, powerful food, which is a sprout. And so if you really want to do your seeds correctly, you want to sprout them. That being said, it's not the end of the world. You're not going to die by eating seeds, but you got to be a little bit careful. Grains are seeds. And one of the problems we have, one of the most problematic foods that we eat as a culture are grains because they're seeds. And the seeds that are grains contain gluten and other compounds that many people react to. So when people say they react to gluten and they react to grains in general, they have psoriasis or immune problems, inflammatory problems from eating grains. What they're really reacting to is the seeds, the poisons in the seed that nature has put in the grains to keep you from eating them.
This could be a whole other show. I can see that. But you recommend, for instance, taking flax seeds, grinding them, and putting them in our shakes. So that's
Yes.
the perfect example of what you're talking
you're releasing
about.
when you grind a seed and add water, you dissolve, and especially if you can do heat, you will dissolve a lot of those problematic molecules. And then again, seeds, it's like, you know, in nutrition, sometimes things aren't that cut and dry. Not like things are all good or all bad. So flax seeds, while yes, they're seeds and they do contain enzyme inhibitors and things that put your cells to sleep and maybe have cause digestive health issues, also are a great source of omega-3 fats and vitamin E and magnesium and fiber and all kinds of wonderful nutrients. So I love flax seeds, but I always grind them up.
All right, back to you, Becca.
All right. Do you have time for one more?
One more.
All right. Let's go over to Norman. Diane, please unmute yourself. Can you hear?
This is fascinating information. Thank you. I love this. One, how about coconut oil as a facial moisturizer? And two, I'm guessing sunflower butter like instead of peanut butter, is not good.
No, sunflower butter is a highly processed oil, and yes, it is problematic. Peanut butter is pretty much the same, and that's not. Neither of those are great foods unless you eat them fresh, maybe, and you grind them up fresh, which nobody does. They're not. Neither of them are good foods. Almond butter, if you're going to do a butter, almond butter is probably better for you. As far as coconut oil for the skin, coconut oil will not only do 0 for your skin health, but in the long run, although there is a little vitamin E, which can help have some protective benefits, but coconut oil isn't going to do anything for your skin health. But even worse, it can actually suppress your skin's natural moisture factors. And this is important because we collapse 2 very distinct ideas into one. Idea number 1 is softening the stratum corneum. Your skin is layered, and the surface has you have a layer of fingernail. Think of your fingernail, right? Your fingernail, you have a thin layer of fingernail-like material on the surface of your skin. That material is called keratin. And keratin has a hard, dry, rough quality. When you put moisturizers, oils, or coconut oil, or butter, or mayonnaise for that matter, or yogurt on the surface of the skin, you soften this keratin, the stratum corneum, the fingernail, but you don't do anything for the health of the tissue. And even worse, when you have something on the surface of the skin, that shuts down the skin's moisture factors. So coconut oil will not only do nothing for your skin except soften the stratum corneum a little bit, but it can have a suppressant effect on important molecules for skin health, including moisture factors. So coconut oil, I know there's a lot of people who will use coconut oil, or for that matter, they'll use olive oil or oil of Olay or just standard moisturizing creams. So you're not doing anything for your skin. You're just softening the surface. If you want to soften the surface, that's great, but you're not changing skin health. In fact, you're actually suppressing some of the molecules that are important for skin health with coconut oil. That help?
Great to know. Wow. Okay, so a lot of people have asked me about coconut oil, and now we have the answer.
Yes.
Even on the skin.
We should do something on skin one of these days.
We're gonna do skin. We've got 5 new shows coming up.
I know.
Just from this show.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I'm going to add skin to the list. Pharmacist Ben, another amazing Pharmacist Friday. Thank you so much for being part of our mentor team, our friend, our advisor, our just so many hats that you wear, and we are so honored to be able to host you on the Daily with Doc show. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Join us on our Bright Bites, our Pharmacist Bites.
More Bright Bites. Do you have another one scheduled?
AJ schedules them for me.
Well, I asked AJ, and AJ says, when Ben tells me, and I'm like, what's up with this, guys? How can I help promote it if we don't have a schedule?
It's called Ben's Bites.
Yeah, they're bonuses. We just do them when we're in the mood. They're fun though.
Well,
I like them.
I think they're fabulous as they add to and are powered by Daily with Doc. But it's just adding
this information stuff that we're doing. It's really what longevity is all about. Yeah, we got the best nutritional supplements you'll ever use, but really it's about education and information. Anybody who's interested in this kind of stuff, join us. If you're a guest here, if you're not a distributor, join us. We need people to help spread the word. This is important information. And, Doc's been doing it for decades. We're all helping Doc do his mission here. So anybody out there who wants to join us, if you're a guest or if you know anybody who might be interested in this kind of stuff, we want business builders and people who want to help spread the word.
Absolutely. And folks, if you're one of those people, get back with the person that shared this program with you. If there is no one to thank, call us 855-949-3377. Again, that's 855-949-3377. If you prefer email, you can email us info@dailywithdoc.com. Again, that's info@dailywithdoc.com. DWD.com. Again, this is for people that are not currently working with somebody else. We're not referred to this program. We want to maintain the integrity. As we are a resource for an amazing community, we invite you to be part of that community. Now, we cannot do this by ourselves. So it does take a team to put on Daily with Doc. And I am honored to be able to have, of course, Pharmacist Ben as part of that team. But we also have Albert, who is joining us from South Africa on this team, helping to let people in. We have Marilyn, who is helping to put the transcription of what's being said into the chat, which, folks, if you're not here live with us, you're missing out on that. So you want to make sure that you come and join us live. We have Phyllis, who's also helping with that. She's also watching the different platforms, bringing those questions in to the Zoom room. We have AJ, who's bringing those questions in as well. And he's also one of the main reasons why you're on so many different platforms and meeting you where you're at. And last but not least, we have our production manager who helps keep us organized and on task, Ruth Ellen Sanchez. So, folks, you have skills. Bring those skills to the table, and let's help you find a greater passion, a greater purpose than yourself in helping others. There's no greater, what's the word? I don't know. But anyways, reward, that's the word. There's no greater reward than being able to help somebody else achieve goals, reach goals, overcome hurdles that have been even plaguing them. And that's something we have solutions for. So join us here as part of a team within the Longevity family. Of course, if you're not working with anybody, we want you on our team. Absolutely. Because I think we have, I can't say this because we have a lot of amazing coaches here on with us. They're amazing, but you know, we have an amazing team as well. Anyways, thank you everybody for joining us. We will see you next week, Monday through Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. Pacific time on Daily with Doc. Go to dailywithdoczoom.com or zoom.dailywithdoc.com, and that will bring you right into our waiting room. And of course, you want to be here 12 to 1 p.m. Today's even later than that, but that is the time that you'll be able to come into the Daily with Doc show, and we invite you. Bring your questions. Until next time, bye for now.
Bye, everybody.
This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach.
This program is for educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you do have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach.